Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and we just got a load of new information about Tekken 8. And when I say just, I mean like a week ago, cause I was super busy. But on the bright side, that gave me time to comb through every frame of the trailer and other released material to discover some juicy tidbits you may have missed. By the way, this video will not contain any discussion of the roster leak. I have seen it, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't, and I also don't want Katsuhiro Harada to break down my door. So without any further ado, let's get into this. There's nothing new in the first 30 seconds, aside from the scene of Jin and Kazuya fighting in a dark void. It's very reminiscent of Leroy and Lydia's Tekken 7 trailers, which makes me think it's just promotional material as opposed to a story cutscene. We then get a montage of intro animations. If you listen closely, you'll notice that Brian's laugh has changed since his trailer in the closed beta. I hope they stick with the new version, because it's more menacing and less.
I'm the Joker, baby!
We also learn that the game is going to launch with 32 characters. Not counting arcade releases, that's the smallest base roster we've had since vanilla Tekken 5. However, it's still pretty beefy in the grand scheme of things. For comparison, Street Fighter 6 launched with only 18 characters, and Mortal Kombat 1 is launching with only 24. Speaking of 24, that's how many characters have been officially revealed, so we're still waiting on 8. The most likely venue for the next reveal is Tokyo Game Show in September, but in the meantime, we might get extended trailers for the characters who briefly appear in this one. After that comes some new story mode cutscenes. The first shows Nina, Jack 8, and a bunch of Jack 7s walking dramatically through a war-torn city, which is probably part of Kazuya's attack on Urban Square seen in earlier trailers. The Jack 7s might just be here for show, but my guess is that they're going to be non-playable enemies, much like Jack 4s and Jack 6s were in the last game.
Also, the Jack 7's got a slight redesign. I don't know why I suddenly sound like a British robot.
Next we see Claudio doing some Claudio stuff on a nighttime version of the Colosseum, which hasn't been shown before. It then cuts to Lars and Huong on the same stage, seemingly about to fight Claudio, although these may be unrelated scenes that were stitched together for the trailer. I'm curious to know if Lars and Huong will remember each other from Tekken 6's scenario campaign. That mode isn't entirely canon, but I assume Huong's mission is since it's mandatory. That's followed by a bunch of Jack 7s descending on Yakushima, likely in search of Jin and or Jun who used to live there. It then cuts to Zhao Yu on the same stage, and again, it seems like they're fighting, but these may be unrelated scenes. I'm not expecting Huong or Zhao Yu to be super plot relevant, but it's nice to know that more characters are going to be involved in the main story this time around. The final story cutscene shows Raven repeating his famous line from the Tekken 5 intro. At first I thought this was a recreation of that exact scene, like how Tekken 7 recreated the Hanmaru fight, but upon closer inspection, his sunglasses and earpiece match his new Tekken 8 design. The reflection in his sunglasses looks like a burning cityscape, so maybe this is also a part of Kazuya's attack on Urban Square. That brings us to the new character reveals. First up is Dragunov, who now has some frosty effects on his rage art. This is probably nothing more than visual flair, but Tekken 8 is giving lots of characters unique gimmicks, so maybe Dragunov is going to have ice attacks that slow the opponent down or something like that. Next up are Shaheen, Steve, and Leo, who I don't have much to say about, at least during this part of the trailer. But then we get to Yoshimitsu, who looks frickin' sick. This might be my new favorite Yoshi design. We see him jumping in front of the moon as purple energy surrounds him, and I'm not sure what this animation actually is. My first thought was that it's his intro, but that won't make sense for a daytime or indoor stage. I suppose it could be a unique intro that only plays on a certain stage, like Hunamitsu had on the Vermilion Gates in Tekken 7. But I think a more likely explanation is that it's part of his rage art. Outer space appears during Pulse, so it wouldn't be weird for the night sky to appear during Yoshi's. It's also possible, albeit unlikely, that this is a story cutscene. Yoshi's voice is higher pitched and less distorted than usual, which I've seen some complaints about, but I actually like. He sounds more like the Soul Calibur Yoshimitsu.
Yoshimitsu Kendo! It is I, Yoshimitsu!
Speaking of Soul Calibur, his bio on the Tekken 8 website mentions that the Manji clan has been active since the Sengoku era, which is when Soul Calibur takes place, so that's some nice continuity right there. The weirdest part of the trailer is Arcade Quest, a single-player mode where you make a cartoony avatar and battle CPUs based on other players. There are a couple of cute Easter eggs in the hub area, like a sculpture of Yoshimitsu's Tekken 7 mask and a sign for Ganryu's restaurant. There's also a clip of Kazuya showing off his sneaker collection, which has been listed as a hobby of his going all the way back to Tekken 1. That brings us to my favorite part of the trailer, and of fighting games in general, the costumes. The music in this section reminds me a lot of the main menu theme from Tekken Tag Tournament 2. I don't think it's a remix, but it definitely has similar vibes. Forgive me. Kazuya has 4 different outfits, all of which look like generic customization options rather than unique presets. Next we see Steve in a fur-lined coat, and King in a fancy black and gold outfit similar to his Tekken 4 2P. This seems to be a unique intro animation between Steve and King, and I'm not talking about the author. These two have never canonically interacted, but according to their bios, Steve wants to learn a new fighting style and King is looking for new allies, so they're probably going to become training partners. That's followed by Nina wearing glasses and some cat ears. Again, I'm guessing these are generic customization options because I have no idea why they would belong to Nina specifically. We then see Huong in a punk getup. Many of the words written here are names of Huarong's moves, such as Peacekeeper, Airfang, Painkiller, and Hawkwind. His jacket also features a recolored version of his classic Tekken 3 logo along with the phrase Free Wings, which doesn't reference anything specific but ties into his usual bird theming. And of course, the patch over his left eye is a reference to his Tekken 7 design. After that is Leroy in a tracksuit. I can't make out exactly what's written on it, but it looks like it says fight without glare, so maybe it's talking about his sunglasses. We then see Shaheen in the fancy suit and Kazuya in his 2P from the initial reveal trailer. Then there's Brian, who's just straight up dressed as Albert Wesker from Resident Evil. He's on an alternate version of the arena stage with ominous orange lighting, being watched by a silhouette with glowing red eyes. This may be a Tekken Force soldier, but it looks more like some kind of shadow demon, possibly a reference to the Revenants from Tekken Mobile. In the background is C3HN309, which is the chemical formula for nitroglycerin, the main ingredient in dynamite. Next up is Jack 8, who's wearing a gas mask and some goggles. No clue why a robot would need either of those. He has 2 kanji on his crossbelt. The first means inevitably or certainly, while the second means win or victory, so this would roughly translate to something along the lines of always victorious. That's followed by Lily and Asuka wearing each other's clothes. Much to the dismay of shippers everywhere, this isn't unique to them, as Yellow Motion revealed we'll be able to put anyone's costume on anyone else in customization mode. That's not the only page that Tekken is taking out of Soul Calibur's book, as we'll also be able to reposition certain items in 3D space. These are nice improvements, but Tekken's customization is still lagging far behind. Not sure why they don't just copy Soul Calibur's system one for one. After that, we see Paul in his classic look, and then both Law and Paul in the golden tuxedos that come with the deluxe edition. Next is Raven in his Tekken 5 2P. Hopefully this is a sign that other classic ults will be making a return. Rounding out this section of the trailer are Dragunov in winter camouflage, Azucena with some gold bling, and Leo wearing an outfit very similar to the slim fit military preset from Tekken 7. Like Steve and King, Azucena and Leo have a unique intro animation, but their bios don't give us any hints as to what their relationship might be. The last big reveal is Kuma, who's wearing his late master's gi and wielding a robotic missile salmon, or as I like to call it, an electric wind god fish. Hey, maybe this is what the nitroglycerin is for. Lastly, we see 3 more unique intro animations. The first is between Steve and Huarong, who are the punchiest and kickiest members of the roster respectively. They've never canonically interacted, but they fought each other in the Tekken 5 intro and were partners in Street Fighter Cross Tekken. The second is between Brian and Yoshimitsu, who are longtime nemesis. And the third is between Leo and Azucena, which again, don't know what's going on there. With that, I'm gonna leave this video here. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I bid thee farewell. With the upcoming releases of Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, I've been thinking a lot about fighting game rosters. Specifically, I've been thinking about the times veterans were replaced by new characters with similar styles. Today, we're looking at the world's least stealthy ninja, Yoshimitsu. Again, because we already did the Soul Calibur version. But before we begin our analysis, here's a quick refresher course on who Yoshimitsu